The dark web isn't just a myth. It's a place where nightmares become real, and sometimes they find you. Story 1. The flickering cursor on my screen felt like a taunt. I was deep, deeper than I'd ever intended, lost in the labyrinthine alleys of the dark web. It started innocently enough, a morbid curiosity fueled by late-night forum discussions and whispered urban legends. They spoke of hidden marketplaces, of unfiltered truths, of things the surface web conveniently erased. My entry point was a clunky, outdated Tor browser. The first few days were anticlimactic. Endless links led to dead ends, garbled text, or impenetrable encrypted files. But then, I stumbled upon it. A website with no name, just a stark black background and a single pulsating red dot. Clicking it didn't open a new page. It initiated a download, a small, unassuming executable. Against my better judgment, I ran it. The screen dissolved into a chaotic mosaic of images, a nightmarish screensaver. Faces contorted in silent screams, abstract patterns that induced nausea, flickering snippets of what looked like surveillance footage. It lasted only a few seconds before snapping back to my desktop, the download window now closed. No trace, except for the unease that settled deep in my gut. That night I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house, every shadow cast by the moonlight, felt malevolent. I dismissed it as paranoia, the lingering effects of the disturbing imagery. The next day, I tried to access the site again. It was gone. Vanished. The link was dead. But something else had changed. A new chat window had appeared on my desktop, unprompted. It was a simple text-only interface, with a single line blinking at me. "Did you enjoy the show?" My blood ran cold. I hadn't typed anything. I hadn't initiated any communication. I stared at the message, my heart hammering against my ribs. Fear, cold and sharp, pricked at my skin. "Who are you?" I typed, my fingers trembling. The response was instantaneous. "We saw you looking. We liked what we saw." The conversation that followed was a descent into a chilling reality. They spoke of a network, a collective that harvested and traded in the most disturbing aspects of human experience. Not just illegal content, but raw, unfiltered fear. Secrets, vulnerabilities. They claimed to observe, to catalog, to understand the deepest recesses of the human psyche. They knew things, small details I'd never shared online. My cat's name, the brand of coffee I preferred, the street I lived on. It was impossible. Unless that executable hadn't just displayed disturbing images. The fear escalated from a prickle to a suffocating weight. I disconnected from the internet, pulled the Ethernet cable, even considered smashing my computer. But a chilling thought stopped me. What if they were already inside? What if disconnecting only made me more vulnerable, removing the illusion of control? I tried to be logical. It had to be a sophisticated phishing attempt, a clever social engineering trick. But the specificity of their knowledge gnawed at me. They didn't ask for my passwords. They knew them. They didn't guess my location. They stated it. The next day, the chat window reappeared again. This time, it wasn't a question. It was a statement. "Your neighbor's dog barks at 3 a.m. You should get earplugs." I lived alone. I didn't have a neighbor's dog. Then, a sickening realization washed over me. They weren't just observing my online activity. They were watching me. Through my webcam? My phone? The edges of my vision felt blurred. My own apartment suddenly a stage for unseen eyes. Panic, raw and unadulterated, finally took hold. I scrambled for my keys, my mind a frantic mess. I had to get out, to go somewhere public, to break the perceived connection. As I fumbled with the lock, my phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. "Don't go outside." "It's safer in here," I froze, my hand on the doorknob. The red dot from that website flashed in my mind, pulsating, watching. The dark web wasn't just a digital space. It had spilled out. It was here, in my apartment, in my building, in my life, and I had invited it in. And I had. Story 2. Boredom is a dangerous catalyst. It's what led my roommate Liam and me down the digital rabbit hole one rainy Tuesday. He'd been bragging for weeks about his secure setup. Tor browser, a VPN routed through 3 countries, the whole 9 yards. It's the real internet, he'd said, his eyes wide with the thrill of the forbidden. Raw, unfiltered. Most of it was just unfiltered garbage. A graveyard of broken links, conspiracy forums that read like bad fiction, and marketplaces for things I didn't want to think about. We were about to give up when we found a link titled simply, The Waiting Room. It was a live stream. The video quality was grainy, like an old security camera, showing a small, empty room. The only furniture was a single wooden chair in the center, facing away from the camera. The wallpaper was a faded floral pattern, peeling near the ceiling. A single bare bulb cast a sickly yellow light, and you could hear the low, incessant hum of old wiring. The unsettling part was the chat log scrolling beside it. It wasn't a frenzy of activity, but a slow, methodical drip of messages. User 7B2. The dust settles. Always. Spectre 9. Patience is a virtue. Null observer. Soon. We watched for almost an hour. Nothing happened. The room remained perfectly still. It was profoundly boring and deeply hypnotic. This is lame, I said, finally breaking the silence. It's probably just some weird art project. Liam, ever the provocateur, typed a message into the chat box. Anyone home? He wrote, and hit enter. The chat went silent for a full minute. I felt a prickle of unease. Then, a new message appeared, from the user named null_observer. It wasn't addressed to Liam's anonymous username. It was addressed to me. Null observer. Stop tapping your pen, Mark. The microphone picks it up. I froze. My fingers were wrapped around the cheap ballpoint pen I'd been nervously clicking against my desk. I hadn't even realized I was doing it. Liam stared at me, his face pale. He slammed the laptop shut. How? He whispered. No way. It's a trick. A lucky guess. We unplugged the router and didn't speak for the rest of the night. The next morning, I tried to convince myself it was a coincidence. But when I went to get the mail, a small, plain brown box was sitting on our doorstep. There was no shipping label, no return address. My name, Mark, was written on top in neat black ink. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside, nestled in foam, was a cheap, generic webcam, the kind you clip to the top of a monitor. And beneath it, a small, folded piece of paper. It read, "Now we can see you better. The chair is waiting." Story 3. It started, as these things always do, with boredom. Sam and I were 2 weeks into summer break, and the humid city nights were starting to feel like a cage. "Let's do it," he said, his face illuminated by the glow of his laptop. "Let's actually poke around the deep web. Not the fake horror story stuff. The real deal." I agreed. The thrill of the forbidden was a powerful lure. We downloaded the Tor browser, the anonymity a thin digital cloak that made us feel both invisible and invincible. The first few hours were a bust. Broken links, clunky forums discussing cryptocurrency, and conspiracy theories that were more sad than scary. Then Sam found a directory, a simple list of .onion sites. One caught his eye. It was just a string of random characters, but the description read, "The Still Room." Intrigued, we clicked. The page loaded to a low-quality live stream. The camera was static, pointed at a grimy, empty room. A single wooden chair sat in the center under a bare, buzzing fluorescent light. A single, heavy-looking metal door was visible on the back wall. That was it. No sound, just the faint hum of the light. Below the video was a simple chat box, slowly scrolling with messages from anonymous users. They weren't talking to each other. They were placing bets. 10 hours till knock, one read. Door opens in 3 days, said another. It was like watching paint dry, but the context made it deeply unsettling. We watched for nearly an hour, mesmerized by the absolute nothingness. "This is lame," Sam finally typed into the chat, emboldened by anonymity. "I bet nothing ever happens." Almost instantly, a new user appeared. Their name was simply Observer. They typed one word in response to Sam: "Wait." That's when I felt the first real prickle of fear. It was the directness of it. We weren't just watching, we were being watched. "Screw this," Sam chuckled, though his voice was a little tight. "Let's make something happen." Before I could stop him, he typed, "Someone should knock on the door." The chat fell silent. My heart hammered against my ribs. And then, through the tinny speakers of the laptop, we heard it. A faint, but distinct thump, thump, thump. It came from the metal door in the video. It was impossible. "A pre-recorded trick," Sam insisted, closing the laptop with a snap. But I couldn't shake the feeling that we had crossed a line. The next day, I got an email. It was from an anonymous, encrypted address. The sender was Observer. The subject line was my full home address. I felt the blood drain from my face as I read the body of the message. It was a single sentence. "You knocked. Now someone has to answer." I tried calling Sam all day. Voicemail. Texts went unanswered. Panic, cold and sharp, began to set in. The digital threat had breached the firewall of my reality. Every creak of my apartment building, every shadow in the corner of my eye, felt like a prelude to something awful. By nightfall, I couldn't take it anymore. I drove to Sam's apartment on the other side of town. His car was in its usual spot. I ran up the stairs and found his door slightly ajar. A sliver of cold dread ran down my spine. "Sam?" I called out, pushing the door open. The apartment was empty, eerily quiet. But his laptop was on his desk, open. The sickly glow of the screen drew me in. It was still on the same page. The still room. The stream was active, but the room wasn't empty anymore. Someone was sitting in the wooden chair, their back to the camera, perfectly motionless. It was Sam. Underneath the video, the chat box was scrolling over and over with the same message from Observer. Answered.